Go.
Hello, everybody. Let's
guys.
do a quick sound check.
It's all working from my standpoint.
Let's do a visual check. Tim, check in with me. Look deeply into my eyes. Am I here? Are you here?
I just get lost.
What is what is existence?
Yeah. Is anyone really here?
Oh, I might be a little punchy right now because I'm just tired. You know, I always start these stream or the updates saying like we're really busy. Holy crap, very busy. So we've had a lot going on. How much? I've actually been very much in Artland this week. Did we run any tests this week?
I think we're doing one internally after the stream.
So just around testing while I'm in it, we're not going to be doing any testing this weekend, partially because we wanted to make sure that, you know, we always have to have an employee running these tests, so we wanted people to have an actual Memorial Day weekend, which is a good reminder that we will also Memorial Labor. I'm tired. Give me a break. Right when Max said we're live,
fact-checking us so that we're not purveyors
Labor Day.
of fake news.
Yeah, I went from this right before the stream started to hello. So we won't be here Monday. We will be here obviously the next 4 days. Apparently, based on what is in Max's newsletter, which will go out today, there's an article from Brian in there in the CM sphere. And he mentioned that people really appreciated having the forewarning, the much lengthier forewarning for testing. So we're going to try and continue doing that when we can.
Yeah, it sounds like we had a really big turnout for that one.
Yeah.
So that was cool.
A couple of cool screenshots, lots of people running around, and I hope nobody's computer overheated. That's still the warning on there running that scenario.
If it did, it deserved it.
Okay, honestly, I have not sat here in quite a few streams.
That's true.
Because I've been busy.
So be thinking of your art questions. Because Tyler needs to answer all of them this week.
Ugh. So, I got that
He's real excited about it, too.
The 10-mile stare. So, I believe we pretty much just jump into the top 10-ish here, which for anybody who's new or joining this or has not seen one of these before is basically our highlights for the week. We actually have a lot of really cool stuff going on, a lot of really cool gameplay things. Some of these are kind of, I could still kind of say some of these are core tech stuff. You know, at one point we were saying we'd gotten through a lot of the hardcore tech, which I can definitely say we did. So now we're hitting a lot of kind of tech for gameplay. But the number one item is it's Dragon Con. MJ and Andrew have journeyed to Atlanta and will be attending a couple of panels. If you're in the area, stop by and say hi. So if you're at Dragon Con or about to drive to Atlanta or fly to Atlanta, Mark and MJ are there. Or Mark and MJ. God, I'm tired. Andrew and MJ are there.
Do you want me to do a couple of these while you're now?
I actually got up early this morning. I couldn't sleep, woke up at 7:30 and started working on character stuff and then drove in later.
Yeah, I was telling the guys in stand-up earlier, like last week I was in Iceland, and so I'm still sort of on Iceland time, and so like every day this at 6, and so by the time I'm done with work, I'm actually like ready to eat dinner and go to bed. And so last night I was like, tired of my sleep schedule being screwed up. I'm going to stay up till midnight so that I sleep in late and fix it. So I stayed up till midnight and then woke up at 6.
Your body said, screw that. Actually, I want to talk about the next one because I think it's a lot of fun.
All right, have fun.
This whole nav mesh shit we got going on. Tech work in progress, 3D nav mesh. So the cool part here is that we're actually going from the 2D to the 3D. The last couple of weeks we've been talking about the long journey through the 2D version of the nav mesh, and now we're hitting the 3D version. This week we got our nav mesh working in 3 dimensions, which I carefully worded as certainly something necessary for, well, a 3D game. While this matters for things like stairs and multi-floor buildings, it's also important for line of sight tracing and visibility. The funny part about this is when we first actually started talking about this and getting the 2D version in, the thing that was said was we can't have anything that's overhanging.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's going to be really hard for art.
Yeah, you can get really far with a 2D Pathfinder in like as soon as you have like stairs that go like this, you're just boned.
Yeah. I mean, basically the way it was described to me was if there was an archway and the player characters stood under the archway, the NPCs would just run around it, not knowing where the players. So that's really cool, and obviously gives us more stuff for later, like line of sight and visibility, so that they can actually see you, which relates to the next one, tech work in progress line of sight. Speaking of line of sight, we added line of sight checking to NPC ability behaviors. This will allow NPCs to only fire at things they can see and can be used later for stealth and detection. Now you get the fun one.
Yeah, there's also like as line of sight grows.
Hang on a second, guys.
No.
Weird stream stuff.
Yeah, apparently the audio is cutting in and out, so we're going to move the microphone around.
Just want to like rest it on Tyler's lap.
Move it in a circle.
Let's see if we can pick you up a little bit better.
Quick, get the pentagram and put it down around it. Maybe it'll work.
Someone speak Latin fast.
Are you kicking the table by chance?
No?
Nope.
Nobody's touching it.
Not right this second.
We can kick it.
Would you like us to?
I'm just seeing if it's better. Our ultra professional stream.
Spared many expenses.
For you, the consumer.
That was the beginning of a Life of Brian skit. Spared many expenses.
All right, let's keep going for now.
Sir, yes, sir.
Go ahead.
So number 4 through 4, .NET Core. So as part of our broad Linux effort, Colin was able to convert the web API to .NET Core. This is one of the last major systems that is needed to be Linux enabled. The light at the end of the tunnel is in sight. Linux tunnel is in sight now. So just in case you guys haven't been paying attention to all the other times we've talked about...
Like the last 5 weeks or something.
Yeah, all the other times we've talked about Linuxification. This is strictly server stuff. So we're not currently scheduled to have a Linux client. That being said, a lot of the work will make it easier to do that at a later date, but that's not on the calendar or schedule at present. So sorry if you got excited about that. Cool tech that we're making happen, and B, since I do a lot of the wrangling of the VMs and the cloud stuff, there's some cool potential in terms of how and when and where we deploy our servers. So what's going on over there?
My phone just keeps going. My sister.
So it's cool stuff. I'm kind of jealous that Colin gets to work on it.
We're going to try something else because it's still...
Like more than one person is saying this?
Yeah.
Off. We can talk bad about all the backers now. Oh, it's bad.
Okay. All right. We're gonna hope that fixed it.
Max says it's fixed forever.
Yeah. That was definitely what I said.
Keep going.
Have we gotten confirmation that they could hear us after unplugging the microphone and plugging it back in?
They're just getting an occasional audio stutter, which is currently a mystery.
Audio stutter?
Not the video, just the audio?
The audio.
Clearly it's all of your faults. Like, fix all of your internet, everyone.
Are you done with your netcore jealousy?
Yeah, you can have texture combiner.
Okay, so the fun one, it's very art related. Work in progress tech, which apparently I wrote work in progress twice. Texture combiner.
Whip, whippy, whip.
So to be able to add different types of models in the engine that can swap parts, we need to support different texture layouts. This would be like creatures, animals, etc. Andrew and Wiley have been working on this with Wiley last miling it right now. Basically what this is the CU characters using...
I don't think that's how you spell miling.
Well, I actually wrote in miling and it told me that was wrong, so I don't know. So I called it miling.
Miling.
Oh god, we're going to get so off target fast. So basically what this is the CU characters use a very specific number of textures, texture sizes, and texture layouts for parts. Imagine, if you will, a big square, and this little section over here is the head, this one's the chest, this is the upper arm, the lower arm, etc., for all the parts. And when you're swapping your gear and everything, we actually regenerate that texture, and each one of those little segments has to be defined. Oh my god.
Hey, listen!
I know, it's like my sister needs to tell me about a rabbit or something. I don't know.
Well, rabbits are cool.
Rabbits are cool, but I don't need to hear about it so much. So anyway, when you swap equipment and everything, all those little layouts basically correspond to you. If you take your pauldron off, we regenerate that little pauldron segment, and you put on a new pauldron, and that little segment of the texture gets updated. What this means is we're very stuck with that specific layout. So let's say we want to put wolves in the game, and they all have different legs. I don't know why we would do that, but let's say it's a possibility. then we would want like a simplified sheet that was like body, legs, leg.
Where does the pauldron go on the wolf?
See, that's what I mean. The wolf doesn't get a pauldron, so I can't use the other layout.
That's racist.
So the cool part about this is they're actually setting it up. Andrew did a really great job right before I left for DragonCon, really trying to push this. And once we get it in, we'll be able to use it for other types of things. And the other thing is we'll be able to add to it later too. So if we suddenly decide we want to add parrots to the game, and parrots are going to be built-in parts, we'll totally be able to do it. Conversely, if we didn't want to have parts, we would need this as well. You want me to keep going?
I'll take some of these because there's going to be a bunch of art at the end that I don't care about. Input. So Matt has made some minor aiming and movement changes that won't quite be visible to you guys, but it makes our life a lot easier for future improvements. So we've been finding just reworking some of the movement stuff to make it easier to work with, to make it easier for us to iterate on, so that we can get that tight feel of movement right. So that's pretty much that. Number 7, scriptable entities and events. Most of the gameplay team has been working on getting us a method for having scriptable entities and events. This will allow Mark and Ben to craft more interactive world elements. So just getting them tools to start building out the world so that we can make all the zones and all that jazz. Number 8, trigger volume scripting. Caleb has been integrating new physics capabilities with our trigger volume scripting. Our physics events surrounding physics, collision, and destruction are much more ironclad than they've been in the past. These new capabilities will allow for some complex scripting and world interactions to occur. Again, giving us lots and lots of tools so that the designers and the guys like Tyler making the world can build out cool interactive worlds that allow you guys to do cool interactive world things.
I remember I think we talked about this a while back of just something we needed to do, and I remember saying to Andrew, so like if I ran by a model, we could trigger an animation and it could be like butterflies.
Oh right, yeah, I remember this.
And he was like, all I'm seeing now is the server being overloaded because the artist had populated the world with thousands of
produces
butterflies. Yeah. And I was like, that's not really what I'm saying. I'm just so actually.
But it's also not what you're saying.
Right, but to speak to this example, let me put it this way. For me, I find like in MMOs, one of the really cool things is when you just have these little events that you feel are special. I remember when I first played WoW, and in some of the bushes, for example, they had little eyes in the undead starting area, and they would kind of just blink, turn off and on. And there was only like 2 or 3 of them in one specific zone, and a lot of people remember it. That little type of thing where you just place 1 or 2 type of little events in the game, I think is just kind of fun. Especially when it's procedural and you hide shit in a bush that you see 1,000 times, but one of them does something.
I'm waiting for Sacrix to hop into the chat about like role players, because that's not me murdering folks. I don't care about little blinky eyes.
Oh, okay.
I just want to stab people. Characters sticking. So one thing that we noticed was when we've got thousands of characters all jumbled together, was that players and NPCs can get stuck and sort of unable to separate. We fixed that issue, allowing thousands of characters to move around each other more easily. It's actually been sort of cool listening to the team work through this, because there's a couple different layers and a couple different issues that were sort of conspiring together to cause this to happen. And as we'd peel one off, we'd be like, oh, there's a couple other things happening here that were sort of hidden by this one thing. So we had to peel a couple of layers off to find all of the issues, and it's been cool watching it come together. I'll get this one, and then you can have the art ones.
Technically, the next one is art.
Do you want it?
Sure.
Go for it.
This one has me very excited. Tech editor transform gizmo. So Rob finished his work from last week on gizmos. I put in parentheses visual manipulators for anybody who's not really sure what we're talking about.
They're little handles that you can grab on stuff that's on screen.
And got them working in the editor. This is also, I have to mention Matt, because I know Matt started with some of this work. So if anybody's deployed something, I think we had the gizmo in there, and Matt had tried to make it very generalized code so that we could later put it in the world editor. And that's basically what this gets. The artists will be able to use these gizmos to be able to rotate, translate, and scale items. Basically, if you've used any basic 3D modeling program, they all kind of replicate the same gizmo. So now in the editor, we'll be able to like drag something over, scale it, rotate it, go to the next one.
And the one we had before that was like
there wasn't one.
Teeth-shatteringly. Well, I mean, like you just had to enter numbers or
it was using some keyboard shortcuts, and then we had one gizmo that would work on a plane. So it was
just mind-numbingly painful.
Tyler's a very patient person. That's what I've learned. Because everybody else who was like, how are you working this way? I was like, patience. And I actually wrote, this will make it way faster to place, rotate, and scale assets by hand in the world, which is something we definitely need to be able to do as we start building the world out more. Art, weapons. So these actually two next one I'll just combine. Art, weapons, and armor. We created new weapons and armor, some helmets that I'll put some images in the update this week. We're not going to commit these yet because we need to kind of finish the crafting model, because what we're probably going to be doing is rebuilding some of these things, just the textures, so that people can tint them, and so that the materials that you use in crafting will create a default output. And what that means is basically we'll take our textures off, and you guys will be kind of working with a pre-generated and tinted system.
Tim was right about the pluralization. It should be singular here.
This is Tyler's face when he doesn't give a shit.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Of course they need to bring this up. It's not like I needed to bring up how you said we were conspiring to bring things together when we were trying to say combine.
You just used it wrong.
Earlier we were talking about the singular or plural of Draugr. And Max had previously told me that Draugr was Draugar plural, and apparently I used it incorrectly. I will hope that Max will catch that when he edits this. The 13th item, Draugr. So it's not plural?
Would you say humans
Yeah,
mages?
humans.
Or
Yes,
human
I
mages?
would. God damn it. Okay. Draugr mages.
Let Tyler live in his wrong world. He's fine.
Exactly. It's a happy place. Over the past couple of weeks, we showed off several Draugr mage NPC concepts. This week, we narrowed that down to 4 concepts we like. These will be on hold until we get to NPC modeling for the world of CU. That's it. 13 items. We
Number
are done.
14, ASDF.
Right, so I will explain that one. Number 14. You just got to keep bringing weird shit up that doesn't.
I didn't put the weird shit on the paper.
You didn't need to bring that up. You didn't need to bring this up. But I'll talk
It's
about
on the
it.
paper.
So when I copy this stuff into MailChimp to send it out, I have to have a 14th item in there so that it formats correctly. That's all.
Exactly 14, not 13, not 15.
Didn't you need something from me this weekend?
Nope.
Oh, great. 'Cause I don't know if you're getting it anymore.
Remember that involved me helping you get your emulator going.
Oh, right. Oh, fine. We'll have to drink during it. Okay, that is everything.
And Tyler has a garage and parts fell off my motorcycle, so I need to borrow his garage to put them back on.
And then, so we had this whole discussion of how much stuff is in the garage. They don't need to know all this. See, you bringing up another shit, it just derails my crazy, tired mind. Okay, we are all done
I
with the
kind of
top
like
10.
watching your mind just...
I know, that's probably what you're getting out of this. So, if you guys have any art questions or... What is it that you do? Ops questions? That's a long-standing joke, because Tim's kind of DevOps right now.
Yeah, DevOps, sysadmin, engineer,
Okay,
tools.
and apologies for us being punchy. Just...
No apologies from me.
Okay, apologies for me being punchy. Just busy getting stuff done. It's the end of the week, and my brain starts fading.
This is the most laughing Tyler's done all
Give
week.
us
so.
your questions. We have an artist and a programmer ops guy here.
A car mechanic.
Right.
And a motorcycle mechanic. I don't know if you guys can hear the laughter.
They're having way too much fun over there in Seattle.
That's the Seattle office TV that's always on over there.
Well, they normally disconnect it for the stream.
Yeah, we have a little virtual office over there. Which reminds me, I haven't pulled anybody up on the little art
Don't roll
pit
your
thing.
eyes at us.
No, I was rolling my eyes at
Some of the great questions.
some of the really silly questions. in
Best
chat.
questions. You guys have the best
gonna be like,
questions. Don't let Max tell you
Don't let
otherwise.
me, yeah. And then he's going to pick them, and we're going to be like, oh,
Fuck.
thanks a lot, Max. We didn't ask for this.
Bringing you the best high quality content.
Have to do some moderating. Sorry.
It's fine.
I can watch artists work while we're doing it.
No, that vert goes on the other side.
Hambone Flex, welcome back. I love that screen name. Hambone Flex asks, for the pet classes and the game, will they have the option to change their athletics of the pets?
I think he probably means the visuals, aesthetic, or...
Probably aesthetics. You might guess.
Look at you being the word Nazi.
Yeah, I have to. You guys are calling me on shit. I got to try harder. My guess is for the first version, the first goal is going to be just to get the base models in. I believe what we're talking about was the spirit pet classes that we had talked about. The only reason I'm a little vague is we just haven't talked about them in a little while. And when we initially did that conversation, it was based on performance. So we were kind of going for like these ghosty spirit pet things that didn't necessarily need all the polys of an entire creature.
And in case, like, anytime we come across the subject of, like, NPCs and pets, we sort of hem and haw, because there's a bunch of really fine details that go into NPCs and pets where it determines how much sort of perf they take up on the server.
Yeah.
And so we're really careful about the language, not because we're trying to hide anything from you guys, but because we're not trying to we're trying not to promise on something that we don't intend to deliver on. And there's just lots of little fiddly bits with pets, because most frequently in MMOs, every time you see a pet on screen, it's a player that can't be on screen.
Right.
And so we're just really careful when
At
we
least
talk about pets,
performance-wise.
because we don't want to promise something that's
Even
going
networking, I guess,
yeah,
too.
Yep. We don't want to promise something that's going to end up not being true because it's going to cost something
But granted,
later.
Tim bought me the time for my brain to catch up on the answer to this question. And I'm going to make a little bit of a presumption here, so don't take that as a promise. But the concept of tinting the armor, technically, if we have a system that's not really specific to just armor, I wouldn't imagine we wouldn't be able to use that for being able to tint other things, because all the artist has to do is set the color channels, and then something could be tintable as long as we can pull it into the system.
You just need your normal texture, your mass texture. And
the first version would definitely be there's a thing, the first model. After that would be, I think, not being an engineer and without this system being written, and I didn't write it because it hasn't been written and I'm not an engineer, I think that it's a reasonable thing to say, oh, we could probably adapt that system to other things later.
I just want to hear, like, Max do that whole spiel in, like, a legalese voice.
Yeah, I think the other thing, I mean,
The statement's made by Tyler and Tim, right?
Yeah. There's other parts to this. Like the minute you have like unique textures, now they're no longer shared. So now you've upped the amount of textures that are necessary. And so if you have a bunch of these guys running around with all their own unique textures, then you've got texture memory issues and stuff like that. It's just
to clarify what I was saying
earlier. If only games was
like,
easy.
Like, on screen, if we have the choice of putting like, and this is just numbers out of my ass because I don't know how many polys we use. If we have a choice between like a 6,000 character or a 6,000 poly character and like a 3,000 poly pet, for every 2 pets we put on screen, that's 1 less player that we can put on your screen.
And
the number of
it's not
bits
like
that
it's
we
an
have
absolute.
to send, right? But the number of bits we send across the network to tell you where the pet is and what skill he's using and what effects are on him, those are bits that we're not using to tell you about another player. So again, a lot of this is just we're hedging because pets are sensitive and particular.
And granted, the other thing is, I think when we talked about these guys, we'd also talked about the pets not being out all the time, like a WoW Hunter pet, where you've only got 20 people on screen.
That's what Tyler was talking about, like the spirit pets. A lot of them are just going to be like, it runs out, bites the enemy on the ass, and then disappears or whatever.
Now, granted, we came up with a crap ton of really fun ideas around those things. The concept art and everything that came out of that was a lot of fun. I really remember going, oh, that looks creepy. That's going to be fun. Okay, that was a very long answer.
Yeah.
Calm Tempest asks, will I get tree structures for TDD?
Not. So you wouldn't,
Tyler.
You wouldn't be. No, God, see, it's another complicated answer. So technically, I guess if you could put a plot with trees that were placed in the terrain system within the plot, you could technically build around it.
Yeah, at present.
Well, I was gonna add though. Additionally, one of the things we wanted to do with the BPOs, which some of the backers have been spawning those things, and I think there's some crazy assets in there that I didn't know get turned into BPOs. But one of the things we did want to do was to give players items that they could place within a building plot. So technically, if it was a highly requested thing, we could build a very specific tree model that was meant to be used for building, like the treehouse base type of tree that would give players enough room at some kind of big thing. We could technically do that as long as it fit within the bounding box of the final size of a plot.
Yeah, There's nothing currently preventing you from building around or on a tree except for, the normal stability considerations.
And the third part of this is actually that you could, if you built big enough, like Minecraft, you could build a tree.
Yeah.
You just use all the wood blocks and build a tree.
That being said, it may come a time where we go, you know what, trees are one of those things that we restrict you from putting plots around because gameplay reasons. So at present, we haven't made any restrictions, and as long as stability works, it'll work. But that's something that just depends on.
But interestingly,
how things evolve.
If we had enough people, once a lot of players are playing and building stuff, there's no reason why we couldn't make a leaf block with a very low stability that could be part for visual, and you could technically build yourself a treehouse. But it would be easier to do it within the building system so that you had more stability.
And great for Vikings to just chop down the trunk.
Nanulok asks, what does the art team do after launch?
More art. We keep going. Launch is not a, we don't stop. That's when it actually ramps up. That's fixing things that are broken, working on the next update of art.
There's also, we've talked about a bunch of classes and races that aren't going to go in immediately at launch. So there's all the other classes that we need to do. There's ongoing assets. There's iteration on stuff to make it look better. We've left ourselves in a lot of places, sort of ways that we can incrementally improve the art after launch. But launch gets us a good place, and then we can continue making things better.
We're a very streamlined team. We're relatively small company, so everybody will be busy. Definitely, launch does not mean you stop.
Louis Pellissier asks, will it be possible to edit your character's appearance after creation like it was possible in Deok?
Right now, we are not planning, at least for launch, to do any kind of character editing. Partially because just the scope of doing so is just out. It would just impact the launch of the game and wouldn't get us a lot. We have talked about some other simple ways of doing it, like being able to swap hair or do skin tones. I think, if I recall correctly, in past conversations when we talked about doing the tinting and dyeing for the crafting system and everything, there were some other gimmies that we could get out of it, which would be like skin tone, and we had talked about doing. We mapped all the character UVs so that we could do what do you call it? Not tinting, labeling. That's not the word.
Tagging?
No, putting designs on the character, like scrolling.
Right. Not engraving, but
the other word.
Yeah.
I'm sure if George was, he's probably sitting there watching this going, oh, I know the word.
Decals?
Decals, yeah, we call them decals. So there is some customization that we were planning from that, and the characters are all ready to do it. So that'll get you some. And then technically when you do all the crafting, the way you build things can change the color, and then you can actually tint things after the fact. So there's quite a bit that'll be there. It just won't be, down to the degree of some giant team MMOs.
Yeah, that's sort of from an art and tech aspect. There's also some design considerations. We've said time and time again, choices matter, and if you chose to make your character a short, ugly ass, Lutrapan, and want to make him a tall, regal Lutrapan at a later date, well, you shouldn't have made those choices when you created your character. And again, I don't want to speak for design, but there are design considerations like that about well, you made these choices.
Or you decided to dress your characters hot pink and now everybody can see you.
Yeah, exactly.
Adra Cortesia asks, what are you currently working on but wasn't mentioned in the top 10 lists?
I could have done a whole item of art management. A lot of content management, just making sure everybody's on the same page. That's been a lot of my primary focus, keeping everybody synced up. We've got a lot of new material creation going on. That's been much my week, honestly. That's I didn't mention that because I don't think anybody wants to hear that I've been managing things.
Yeah, I've got lots of behind the scenes stuff going on, like our build server that takes anytime one of our engineers checks in code, it goes off to our build server, which compiles it and uploads it to the patcher so that everybody can get to it. We had several different versions of that script, and so I've spent the last couple of weeks combining those together into one and making that more streamlined and usable, and that's been really awesome now that it's done, but it was painful getting through that process.
Yeah, unfortunately, that type of question isn't going to generate an exciting answer,
Yeah.
because that's what this
Yeah.
is.
If
These
it was
are the more
exciting,
highlight-
it would be on
These
here.
are the highlight things.
We've got a database that's been misbehaving, so I'm working on slapping it into shape. Yeah, that's
And all the sleuthing and theorizing we were doing this morning of maybe that could be affecting something, maybe not.
Yep.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite parts about games is partially the difficulty and how complicated they are and how much problem solving you have to do.
Yeah.
What is it this?
Yeah.
Is it that?
Well, so to explain that a little bit, one of the things we've done in the past is anytime like we do a push from like hatchery to Nuada prep, we can bring all of the code, or we can bring specific bits of the code over just by merit of the way code source control works, if any of you guys know about that. For assets, we don't have that same degree of flexibility. It's all or nothing, or we go through some very risky, very sketchy procedures to try and get like one little asset over, but it's not a thing we almost ever do. And so we've been working past few weeks to getting to a point where we can pick assets in between builds like hatchery and Nuada prep, and
which will be exciting.
Yeah, and so we've started putting some of the scaffolding for that in place and sort of giving it some dry runs, and it was having issues today, but we're not sure if it's having issues because of the tech that we're doing or because of this database that's been misbehaving or any number of other things. So there's been some sleuthing and stuff that Tyler and I have been working on that again is
not
completely
generating was a whole thing that over the last 24 hours.
not interesting to people who are interested in the progress the game has made, maybe interesting to people who are interested in how the sausage gets made. That's just part of our day-to-day. Yeah, and then I've been doing lots of testing of various cloud providers with some help from Che to see which cloud will give you guys the most awesomest servers.
Helzik asks, what is your DevOps attitude toward putting out fires? Do you harshly admonish them like an Arthurian, make them regain their honor by trial like a Viking, or slowly drain the life out of them with your judgmental gaze like a TDD?
I was wondering where that was going.
So
It's a thematic question.
there's this philosophy split between what's the right way to fix this and what's the way to put this fire out so that I can get onto that fire. And that's a very fine line to walk.
Which would you classify the different?
Up until
for realm.
Up until we got Che, who has been immensely helpful, and he's on the DevOps team with me. He's my number 2. Up until we got him, it was very much like stab this fire to death, a la Vikings, and leave its corpse behind and move on to the next one. Now that I have some assistance,
A body. With time.
Now we've been, burying the corpses and planting flowers and going more circle of life a la TDD. We don't have the time to build fancy armor and big castles like the Arthurians. We just got to get shit done.
Like the Vikings?
Yeah.
Mumblefish asks, could there be overlays for builds, like moss or dirt covering multiple block textures?
Where did we leave off on that? So,
It's just a different block type, right?
No, he means like an overlay, like a decal or something to kind of break up, probably, at least the way I'm interpreting the question, for breaking things up. Let me think about this. I think we held back on doing any graphics improvements to the building system, mainly because the work to get the building system and all the rubble and everything performant took up a whole lot of time over, what was it, the beginning of the year? Yeah, really when we hit that Cherry Keep stuff, and we have done some talks about textures and stuff with buildings. I'm not really the person to ask about that. That'd be an Andrew question. He'd have a more concrete, like, what can we do? I know that the buildings take up a lot of, let's just call it space. I don't remember what it is. I can't remember if it was like texture memory or what, but I know they cost us a lot, so I think we have to be very careful with what we do on the rendering side of them. But I am possibly misspeaking. That'd be a great question for Andrew. I'd love to do that stuff, though.
I'd like to point out that Bobo asked a Bo question, but it's for design, really. Giarklin asks, are there any plans in the future for those marvelous trees and grass to be animated, e.g. swaying in the wind, etc.?
Honestly, at this point, I couldn't tell you if it's within scope soon. I think Andrew has ideas about this. So part of the reason some of these bells and whistles aren't in there now is because this whole engine was built to support originally 500 player battles. Now it's got a couple thousand players running around at really great performance. So everything has to be very careful. A lot of these bells and whistles have costs to them, so you need some really smart people like, say, Andrew, or George maybe, or who can come up with some really smart ideas on how to do these things in a performant manner. I know that different packages do this kind of stuff, but I think the problem with those was that it was just too costly rendering wise. So I just don't know where that's going to fit on the timeline, and what are we going to get out of it? I think our primary concern is that classes and everybody running around being able to actually play the main gameplay loop is going to be the main focus for a while. Before we kind of get to some of those bells and whistles. And like I said, I just don't know how we would implement it. I know there are concerns around lots of animated objects in the world as well. Granted, I wonder if any of Mike D's work. Yeah, I think the problem is that every tree is just, I think, becomes like an entity or something once it has animation. So it's just, we'd have to go around all of that because there's, part of the reason the game looks good when you're in a forest compared to other MMOs is because we can actually render a shit ton of trees and bushes and grass with several hundred players running around in there. So we just have to, that's more important than the trees moving. Sorry, long answer that I can't commit to anything on that.
Dreege L asks, with no rounded blocks in cube, are you concerned about the designs that players will be able to create for buildings in CU? Will it be too Minecrafty? Are rounded blocks scheduled for after launch?
So first off, to the best of my knowledge, there's no reason we can't do rounded blocks.
I believe there was a lot of conversation on whether we were going to do that anytime soon or if we'd hold off on it.
Yeah, just in general, like the pyramid and the square shapes end up being more universally useful in more places, and so those are the ones we've opted to build because they get the most mileage. The rounded blocks end up being a little bit more niche just because they don't line up as well with as many different angles.
And aren't we a quarter of the Minecraft block size too?
Yeah, we're half
cubically.
On, yeah, we're half on each dimension. So. Yeah, so there's nothing preventing us from doing rounded blocks to the best of my knowledge. It's just about the way we network them and the way we pack things in memory. The fewer the number of blocks, the better everything is. And so we have to be, again, like we talked about before, we have to be very particular about which things we allow. And adding sort of a narrow use case block gets small return with potentially high cost.
Hambone Flex wants to know about gore. Is there blood spatter? Possible decapitations?
No, there's no dismemberment. There is gore. I mean, as in we have blood splatters and stuff like that. But I think hacking each other apart is a whole new... That's a whole nother scary system that's, would be a big addition, I can assume.
But you don't want to promise that on stream?
Oh, God, no. There's so much work that gets put into where we're at that sometimes some of these questions, I've been around the engineers long enough that I can imagine one of the engineers going, oh, God, no. Like, just...
There's a balance between finding a look and feel that is cool and visceral while still supporting the type of gameplay that we want to do. And so, that blood spray that comes out as like the VFX as part of an attack sort of makes sense and is part of that visceralness. Like the dismemberment, while cool, probably is a huge amount of work for very little gameplay slash.
Well, it would affect a lot.
Yeah.
Suddenly, you mean like the minute you lose an arm, let's just say that was easy. Now what? Now you've got to change the character no longer can attack with the other arm, so now all the animations have to change. So you have to have like a way to get the weapon out of the guy's hand, and his animations ideally would change. And then the next question is, someone's going to ask, well, why is there blood dripping out of the stump? And then what does the player do? How does he get his arm back? Is he out of the game? I mean, I would imagine most people, if I was playing him, I'd be like, well, fuck this, I'm going to go home. Unless I can get my arm back right away.
Well, it's just right there. Just go, just go get it. Thump somebody.
Yeah, I think that's one of those things, that kind of cool idea. You'd really have to build the design of the game and combat around it as well, and that would, since it wasn't one of the core things we were focused on, would require a lot of work.
And talking about making the sausage, you guys don't see a lot of the conversations that happen here where we're like, wouldn't it be cool if you could dismember somebody? And then we sort of go down that logical track and go,
and then go, but this, yeah. Yeah, a lot of what I do is connecting a lot of dots. I think one of the guys put it really well, saying like knowing what the left hand is doing and the right hand is doing at the same time, and you walk some of these ideas down and you just go, oh, that's going to require these 10 things. What's the payoff? Is it worth it?
Byproducts asks, do you have any art done for the crafters yet? Can we see it?
We did a bunch of concept art for them, and I don't think we modeled some of the specific outfits. It was in one of the... I'm fairly certain. I mean, right there on that screen back there. See it?
Yeah, do you guys see it?
So oddly, you guys can't see it, but I have
we have a Chromecast hooked up to a TV.
Yeah, the Chromecast, I put some of the art in there, and ages ago we did do some crafter art, and I'm fairly certain it was in one of the updates. It's pretty old at this point, since we weren't really focused on the crafter classes for Beta 1. But if you go back through the updates, or maybe just, I don't know, you can probably web crawl or search through the website. I'm sure if you typed in crafter, you might find the images. But we did some concept art around it, and I'm, like I said, 90% sure I shared it. But we haven't done any actual 3D asset work since.
Yeah.
Mainly because we also just recently rebuilt all of the existing character art and upgraded everything, and that was months of work to begin with. Additionally, I'm trying not to do too much new weapons and armor, partially because we need to solidify the crafting system, which is going to affect the art that gets created.
Yeah, and pragmatically, from the sort of behind the scenes aspect, like making a standalone crafter class doesn't accelerate our ability to test the systems that are needed for us to launch the game. And so there's not a lot of value in us investing the time and energy into finalizing the crafters at this time, when we still have more complex combatants to get out.
Yeah, there's still ongoing improvements to the ability system, for the supporting other classes and stuff too.
But before anybody interprets that as we don't care about crafters, that's absolutely not true. It's just a lot of the craftery bits have sort of already been sorted out. There's obviously some playtesting and some tuning to be done there, but there's a lot more combatant abilities and stuff that need to be built out. And it's difficult to visualize that. Like, you have to see the combatant on the battlefield. Once you see them on the battlefield, you need to be able to distinguish them from the other combatants. And so there's just a lot more work to get the combatants in, so that we can get to a place where, we're close enough to launching that we can finalize the look and feel of the crafters and get them out. So I don't mean in any way to trivialize the crafters. I think our crafting system is really cool and has lots of potential. It's just doing the crafters now doesn't get us closer to launch.
Helzik asks, how much more needs to be fitted into the ability system before all the classes could be implemented?
Well, we haven't hit pet classes. I know that. We've got the stealth stuff to work on.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know off the top of my head the comprehensive list of what our launch classes are. So without those...
Yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head. But I know, yeah, the pet class was not, I don't believe was part of launch, and like I said, I'm not 100% certain. I just know it's not something we're focused on right now. And I remember I think we've still been talking about getting channeling to be a thing.
Yeah, that's probably a better question for MJ.
Yeah, I'm not really sure.
Wayward wants to know if there's been any work done on getting full component lists into the game and the air system.
Full component list.
Full component lists is just building out the rest of the abilities.
That's kind of sort of the same question. Yeah,
sort of the same question. So the answer to that is yes. We're working on getting more classes and abilities into the game, and as we get those into the game, the component list gets more complete.
Yeah. And the air system, some of that interaction stuff. The last time we were talking.
I think for that we're mostly just waiting for the component list to get more fleshed out. The big thing about the air system is sort of categorizing the different types of behaviors and how they interact, the eye in air. And so we need to wait for the component list to be built out a little bit more so that we can start lumping them into buckets and defining their behaviors.
Mumblefish asks, how much of a visual effect might the veil have on the CU world and biomes beyond the depths?
So to that question, I think we haven't really done a lot of concepting around it. We have done some concepting. I think we'll probably do some kind of post-screen effect to kind of simplify things because, we're not recreating the world. So really all it's going to come down to is probably post-screen effects, see what we get in. We did, George and Andrew have both been doing some work on color grading and stuff like that. And I mean, if we literally chose to, I think we could just kind of shift all the colors around.
Yeah, I imagine there'd be some sort of distortion effect and some sort of color palette.
And we need to get some more tech in probably to support some of that. But we just haven't done it like concrete concepting and gone, that's it. Additionally, I know that when we originally talked about the veil, and I believe a lot of the stuff that's out there talks about having to penetrate through kind of like a wall. So this was one of the initial concerns with ganking, being able to jump out and immediately pop somebody if you were stealth. And the idea was that going in and out through the wall, like a membrane of the veil, was kind of taxing on the player. So the player couldn't just jump right out and be ready to go. In my mind, I've always seen it as going through it might be like, like you're going through a wall of water or something, some kind of cool effect, and then you're in the veil, and now you're in a color coded, graded something look. We just haven't done a lot of concepting around it.
Helzik asks, can we get the user stories back? Lately, I've felt like I've had no clue how each development fits into moving toward Beta 2. Very unlike how I felt back in Alpha when the user stories were well maintained.
Probably not, simply because the amount of maintenance that required, plus the amount of maintenance is required to do the updates, plus the amount of maintenance to do a newsletter, it was just such a huge time sink that as the team grew, honestly, and we were doing more, the amount of maintenance that was being maintained was taking a developer away from actually making the game.
I mean, just doing top 10 outside of the hour that we spend with you guys, which I'm not complaining about. I like doing the streams. It's just, it's an hour that I'm not doing other stuff outside of, two of us being on stream for an hour. Getting ready for the top 10 probably takes most of the time of two producers for half a day.
Yeah, when we get in the morning, Fridays, make sure the top 10's done, start working on the update, get art together. That takes several hours on top of also just whatever else we're doing.
Just doing the top 10 takes up probably a man day and a half between all the engineers having to weigh in on what they've done for a week.
Updating, and I can update the website with the news. That's a 5-minute task for me, but doing the user stories was, even more work for like Charles was being pulled into that too. So it slowly became an unmaintainable thing in competition with actually working on the game.
Yeah, so it's
especially as, like I said, as the team grew.
In case there's any concerns, and our goal is not to pull any wool over your eyes, hide any of this from you guys. We still do, mornings with Max. We still do the update. We started realizing that the cost of maintaining the stories was detrimental to the productivity of making Camelot.
Yeah, and just like the lack of money we spend on a few dinky lights and cheap mics and all that stuff and this IKEA couch, we want to focus finances on the game, not paying somebody to do that. Now, granted, if you're confused about something or want to see you're missing connections between things, obviously you can go through the update newsletter and just click through a few of them and you can see a chain of like the Linuxification or the pathfinding and stuff like that. And technically, if you're even still confused about that, you can always just ask in the forums or something, and sometimes Brian just pokes somebody and goes, hey, what's up with this?
We're running low on questions, but Lone Wolf asks, will there be any testing this weekend?
No testing this weekend. As I was saying before, it's a Labor Day weekend for us, and we wanted to make sure we weren't interrupting anybody else's time off.
Yeah, we've got because Monday's off. We've got a bunch of people also taking the day off just to have a nice 4-day weekend, and so we're just sort of taking a chill weekend this weekend.
Yeah, but the next goal, like I said, next week. I'm trying to think of. Yeah, we honestly, I think everybody was trying to get to this weekend, and then we'll start anew, and we'll figure out. Like I said, we're going to try and do more. What's the word? Let people know early. Notification for when we're doing some of the tests.
Advanced notice.
Yeah, advanced notice.
Gjarkman wants to know, Tyler, how are you finding Substance Designer, and are you guys using Painter as well?
I have not touched it myself. I have been completely busy managing things, which I'm totally happy with, and watching the artists create a lot of great art. I definitely think Substance Designer was something that I wanted to get into the studio, partially because if you can create your own stuff, you can get exactly what you want, and the artists aren't beholden to doing a lot of hand painting and everything. And so far from what we've figured out, it's an incredibly powerful tool. You just have to have the right person who is brilliant, who can hear me, working with it to help us out with materials. The great thing about it is instead of simply working with what you've got, trying to figure things out in Painter, which is kind of like it's kind of like you've got a limited number of sliders. So if you want something very specific, you need somebody to be able to create that material for you. And the great thing about it is what I'm trying to do is get us to a point where we've got materials created that we can just change some sliders and stuff and get a lot of variation out of them instead of having to rebuild everything. It's kind of just a next step in making things faster, and it's fucking fantastic. That's my simple answer.
I don't have any comment on it.
The other great thing is when we for outsourcing, we can also provide specific files and say, use this. These are ours. We created them. Use this.
Calm Tempest wants to know if Calm Tempest can build their forge in a mountain.
You cannot technically break into the terrain at this time. You can't cut a hole into it.
But if there's a naturally occurring cave in their mountain, there's probably nothing preventing you from building inside of it. Probably.
Did we figure out the physics overhang thing with the terrain, and can you actually stick a plot under there?
Well, I mean, the goal is to get to that point.
Yeah.
We may not be there yet,
yeah.
but...
we have to figure out some other things for like mines and things like that, or dungeons. We haven't cut holes in the terrain yet.
Right. Well, I don't really have any more art or programmer questions.
Any terribly personal
So
ones?
you want to come sit over here and they can ask Ryder?
Yeah, let's ask Ryder.
What
Yeah.
for dinner?
Let's ask. What am I eating for dinner?
They can ask me Ryder questions every Monday and Friday morning.
Yeah. We've got my neighbor's son, I think, didn't really get a birthday party or something. I can't remember the details of this. So apparently there's a birthday party that I'm going to be at this afternoon, and I think we're going to have Ray's homemade sliders, which are fantastic.
Today is,
and Ray is my neighbor.
This week is my eldest's first week at school, kindergarten, and apparently in Virginia, if they go back to school before Labor Day, you have to also give them the Friday before Labor Day off. So they've got the day off. They're playing with their friends, and we're gonna go hang out with some of my kids' friends' parents and have pizza for dinner.
Oh, and I'm also gonna have whiskey.
Oh, that sounds way better than pizza.
I'm gonna sit there like this after the party. I'm gonna sit with a little glass of whiskey, and I'm gonna play something.
Did you get some Santori?
Is that a whiskey?
Mm-hmm.
No.
You should.
Is it good?
It's real good.
So at one point, some of the guys here decided we would have like
that's the stuff Andrew brought, the Hibiki Santori, the Japanese Scotch.
So this is the problem with people. We at one point we were doing like a whiskey Friday. I can't remember who came up with the idea. So later on Friday, kind of at the end of the day, a few of us would keep working or talking, and it was like, try out some whiskeys.
Yeah, we did it for like 2 months, and then we either couldn't afford
to
keep buying new whiskeys, or ran out of whiskeys that we hadn't tried.
Exactly, it was something like that. But that's when I learned that I really like stinky Scotch, and that's expensive. And I was like, God, why do I need another expensive thing I like?
Was that the like Mega Pete that Bull brought in?
Oh yeah,
that tasted like you were like sucking on tree bark.
I said it.
I actually liked it. But...
It tastes like a campfire or an old couch. And I just loved it. And so, and then Andrew would bring in something really nice, and it'd be like, oh, I love this so much. How much was this? It's an $80 bottle. Okay. So.
Rob is advocating for Whiskey Club.
Yeah, we should bring that
back.
back.
If you go to the ABC, the Hibiki Santori is 100% worth it.
Okay. Is it expensive?
It was like $60 a bottle.
Yeah. I play video games a lot when I go home.
Might have been 40, but
I might go through it too fast.
We don't have any more questions. Everyone's just like, I'm so happy with the answer to what's for dinner.
Pizza and whiskey.
Also, here's another anecdote. So the other thing I've been doing is I taught myself how to make jerky, which was after teaching myself how to smoke meats. So I've been bringing beef jerky, and I tried chicken jerky, and I've been bringing all these different recipes in. And a couple weekends ago, I was like, all right, everybody loves the jerky I'm making. Now I'm getting bored of it. What else could I learn to make? So I've got a bunch of pickles sitting in the fridge. I'm going to try and work on making pickles, which is actually super easy.
Yeah, I forgot that we were talking earlier. My daughter, who's 5.5, has gotten real big into cooking and stuff. I promised her before I went on vacation.
Mine's really into video games. Let's trade, because I'm the one who likes to cook.
I promised her when we got back, we could either make ramen together this weekend, like actual homemade ramen, or I'd let her like bake cookies or a cake or something. So I gotta figure out what.
Yeah, my daughter was interested in cooking up until the point that she realized that she can only do so much herself, and if she just said, "Dad, could I have a snack?" I would deliver. So
you're an enabler.
Yeah, I'm enabling. But I did. She can totally. I have a bunch of nice sharp knives that I gifted myself sometime last year.
So get her cooking, Mama.
And she totally can use the knives. She's good. She knows to keep her fingers, and she's got knives that are the knives I have. I mean, like, you don't want to mess up.
Get her cooking, Mama, and then you can transition from video games into cooking.
No, it's all Roblox right now.
Do you guys want to wrap this up, or should we do more food questions?
Let's see.
Whatever.
We have a bearded dragon, and my neighbor brought over some kind of big old green worm. I think it's called a hornworm, and you buy them for reptiles at the pet store, and I've never seen one this big. And it was like this fucking big and like that big around. And this bearded dragon her body's only about that big, and it was an absolute spectacle watching her eat that thing. That's another random anecdote.
Yeah, my wife's been shopping for a snake.
My daughter has 2 that I'm always responsible for feeding and cleaning. And Zoe, we got to take the snake out. Come on, go feed it. But of course, it's a lot of fun when friends come over and it's like, hold the snake. The kids all like to come over because there's critters to hold. And Ash has a
he was telling us about his snake being an asshole this morning.
Yeah, he's got like a 7-foot red-tailed boa. I've just got 2 ball pythons. They're tiny.
We have fish.
You have fish?
All right, you guys want a final question?
Also, real quick, just part of the wrap-up part, which I got to do is, like I said, no testing this weekend. Keep an eye on the schedule next week. Check in on us for testing next week. We'll be out Labor Day, Monday, and...
Reminder that if you're in and around Dragon Con this weekend, MJ and Andrew are out there doing some panels.
Was there anything else? Oh, we got the newsletter going out this afternoon. Get the update out. I think that's it. Oh, it looks like some nice materials going on over there made in Substance Designer. Looks like some grasses.
All I see is Cross making things blow up, and I'm proud of him.
Cross, are you making things blow up over there? Sorta. All right, what was the cool last question?
Bobo Dayak wants to know, what do you guys think is the coolest planned thing in CU?
Originally, I would have totally said the depths, because I think from an artist perspective, and I know John, who's staring at me right now, would love to get into the depths. We have all this Giger stuff and just fun, we'll hide vaginas and things and stuff like that. It'll be a lot of fun.
Something's come with those.
But there's a lot of
you don't have to hide them.
There's a lot of fun tech stuff. Just a lot of the world tools and everything. I really want to do the crafting system and update the art to support that. I don't know. I think I've been more excited about the how to get things done recently versus what specifically we're doing. I think that's my answer.
I mean, the coolest stuff for me, we've sort of already done and you guys have already seen, which is just the sheer number of people we can put into a battle. Just like every time we do like a stress test for doing bot testing again, I mentioned to you guys I've been doing testing the various cloud providers, Google and Amazon and Azure and some other guys, to see which ones have the best servers for running Camelot servers. So we'll deploy a server stack to them and run up 2,000, 3,000 bots and see how they perform. And a lot of times we'll bring in like some of the tech guys who are helping us out from the various cloud providers to see it and remembering that, oh yeah, us putting 1,000 people on a server is just nothing. That doesn't phase our servers. It doesn't affect them. We just don't even worry about it until we get to like 2,500.
And anybody who knows what that means goes,
yeah. And so it's sort of hard to remember, like an epic battle in like you played, hopefully a lot of you guys played Dark Age, like a 200-man battle was really fucking cool. And, putting a 5 times multiplier on that is just continues to be...
It's kind of insane.
It continues to be amazing to me despite the fact
Yeah.
of how long we've been doing this. So that's still like the cool thing for me.
I was actually, before you actually started talking about this, I was going to say one of the things to remember is this is still kind of a tiny community. There's a lot of people in the world. And I'm really curious as to like when there's a lot of people playing the game, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
I mean, the part of the game, I remember talking about it years ago, was trying to, get water cooler moments, some randomness to the game, but controlled randomness. We don't want a lot of, you want to know what could happen. And I mean, the engine on this scale, I don't know what's going to happen when you've got hundreds and hundreds of people playing.
My goals may not align with Mark and Ben's vision. So this is Tim's opinions and not the opinions of City State Entertainment.
Or what is it? Town State Leader.
Is I want to be able to put enough people onto a server and into a fight such that emergent behavior is a thing, such that you guys come up with stuff that we didn't think of. And I want you guys to force us to think about problems and go, is this something we want in our game? Is this something that's healthy? Not because we want to punish you or anything for that, but because we can become cognizant of ways that you guys are enjoying playing our game that we didn't think of, and we can either choose to support them, choose to ignore them, or say, no, that's not the direction we want to go. We can either discourage that through gameplay or rules or what have you.
Veilstorm.
And I call that out just because I like to talk about all the options. I think that's not a thing we want to happen is going to be a vast minority of the emergent gameplay that comes out of this, but I want you guys to find those things and force us to make decisions about how we feel about them and to what degree we want to support them and what degree we want to discourage them. And so having the massive battles and the massive server support, that's all part and parcel from me to the emergent gameplay and you guys finding new and interesting ways to play our game. We talk about break the game, but we've built a lot of the
Sometimes
game.
you see what happens.
We've built a lot of the game to be durable against those sorts of things, so that it doesn't break, so that it bends in cool and interesting ways.
That's well put.
And so my hope is that the technology that I see that we've already done that's really, really cool turns into something that sort of has a life of its own. So yeah, there's that, but we've already done that in terms of the technology to support the massive battles. Stuff that we haven't done yet, just so that I don't sort of cheat out of the question. I think a bit of the Veil stuff, just the tech in and around that, intrigues me, and the gameplay in
Stealth
and around
and Vision, I think, will
yeah.
also be really
Yeah, that was the other
crazy.
one is Vision.
Do any MMOs do anything like that? I mean, obviously, line of sight could be a thing, but
yeah,
nobody's gone as far as at least what we'd like to try and do, which was the you just can't see that person.
Yeah, there's some games that have done sort of camouflage mechanics. I mean, Dark Age had stealth, and depending on how good your stealth detection was and how far they were from you, there was
Playing
a chance
submarines.
that you could see them. And yeah, so there was all of that. But I'm excited to implement that and see which direction we end up taking with the post proc effects for the Veil effect. Does it look like when Frodo put on the ring in Lord of the Rings? Is that sort of thing, or what other angle do we take on that to visualize being in the Veil, and also the sickness that comes with transitioning into and out of the Veil and all that. So I think all of that's just interesting.
There's also a lot of bells and whistles that we'd like to do with the animation system later. We obviously have to just do a lot of the core stuff, but kind of pushing different states on the characters. Oh, am I confused? We don't have any support for the ability system, I believe, right now to put you in a different anim state, but it'd be great. A lot of those little things, I mean, since I spent a lot of time talking with the animators and just what we needed to do to kind of improve the look of some of the animations, and we started rebuilding a lot of the old work. Just some of those things I think would be a lot of fun, and we've talked about just different ways the game could influence what the actual character animations are doing, which a lot of games don't do. Stuff like that would be a lot of fun. But even that, that's kind of way out there,
But speaking of sort of going full circle on this, we talked about what are the artists going to be doing after launch.
Yeah.
Theoretically, the ability system supports, if your guy gets set on fire, maybe there's a whole animation set for your guy waving his hands around all crazy and on fire, that we don't need to convey that your guy is on fire. We can put a little fire icon over his head or put little fire VFX on the dude, and you'll be like, that dude's on fire. But after we've hit that
MVP of
we don't want
to say that word, though.
MVP is a loaded, charged word that sort of means something different.
The things we really need to support the main design. Once we get past
to
that,
get the game good and playable, and to deliver on all the promises that we've made to you guys, there are steps above and beyond that add a richness to the world, cool VFX for
butterflies
burning,
coming out of bushes.
Yeah, a guy doing a weird stunned or confused effect.
And all we'd have to do is maybe a bit of shake, blend that into your animations, and he does this, and then when you hold still, maybe he goes.
Yeah, and so there's still a lot of that to be done that isn't necessary for an enjoyable, challenging, immersive world, but that takes it from a 10 to an 11. And so there's just a ton of that to be done.
Bingo bango.
And with that,
that's all to end
keep
today's
an eye
update.
out for
Bingo
our
bango.
Update email, the monthly newsletter going out this evening, the updates to the tentative testing schedule.
Well, nothing will go in there today. Nothing will get updated on today.
Next week we will be off on Monday, so no Morning with Max. But we will be back in the saddle on Tuesday.
And then Tyler invites you to his neighbor's house for
sliders
whiskey
and whiskey.
Sliders.
There's a lot of work that's got to get done from now till tonight.
Yay!
Yay!
Okay. See you later.
Have an awesome weekend, guys.